Hey guys, D1sco here, and today I'm reacting to the Dead by Daylight stats. These are global stats, I guess, a little bit different than what they usually do. Usually they talk about stats with like new killers or stats with like, survival, like usage and stuff. But just this one's a little bit different. So let's begin, shall we? Welcome again to Fog of Dwellers to another round of stats. This time we've got some stats from different parts of the globe. No matter how far apart you are or what language you speak, we're all connected by one thing, the love of DBD. Let's take a look. So these are the player stats for Asia and Oceania. So it says the most picked survivor perks one is the opportunity. The most picked killer perk is Scourge Check Pain Resonance. Neither are bad options. I know Pain Res has been like I know it was like more powerful, however many years ago, and it's kind of gotten lessened. Lately, but I know a lot of people still use the perk a lot. A lot of people still find ways to utilize it or not, which, fair enough. The most picked killer, interestingly enough, is the ghoul. I see a lot of people say that he's like the easiest killer to get 4Ks with, or at least one of them. I don't obviously there's also some skill involved there. I know for me, I wouldn't be able to just play the ghoul in a match and just win, right? I just don't have the experience with the character, but I know he really kind of trivialized the game for a lot of people and just made it so, like, I guess easy, you could say, to an extent, to the point where, a lot of people were saying he was like one of the best killers in the game, and a lot of people hated him and just DC if you tried to play as him. So, but I believe a lot of those issues that I'm referring, kind of that stuff that I'm referring to, I believe a lot of that stuff is no longer as much of an issue because they fixed some bugs with him and whatnot. They've touched him a little bit here and there, so I feel like some of that is lessened now. But the killer with the highest kill rate is the slasher, interestingly enough. 4.5%. Now, there's might be some recency bias to this. As of filming this video and when it goes live as well, I believe that is the newest killer in the game. So I'm sure that there's some recency bias there. But it's cool to see that he, has the highest kill rate right now. He's a really cool character. He's very interesting. He is kind of confusing because he's got like, in a way, he has like 3 or 4 different powers. Right? He's got the one where he's sort of like sneaky, and that mist stuff. But then you can do, but then there's powers. But then there's there's a power for that, and then he also has the ability to just start throwing stuff. And what to like throw those like spear things at people. So like he's very interesting in that way. Most picked survivor is Fang Min. That doesn't really surprise me. I know Fang Min is super popular. Kind of interesting to think that the Asian gamer character is the most picked survivor, but I kind of get it. She has a lot of outfits, and I think that's a big reason why. Just she has a ton of outfits, right? She's got that one that she's got like cosplay outfits, right? Where she's literally wearing something that like certain, from certain collections, and she's supposed to be like cosplaying somebody. She's got those. She's got those 2 pajama like hoodie things with the bunny ears. She's got the Lunar New Year skin where she her headphones have the little bunny ears on them and stuff. Like, she's got so many outfits. It's great. I know Nia has a lot as well, but Fang really has a lot. And Fang's variety, I think, really lends itself to kind of why she might be picked so highly. So highly picked. Then the survivors, the highest escape rate is Shane Wiglass at 54.5%, which again, just like with Jason, he's literally the newest character in the game. He's barely been in the game. So in my opinion, I feel like if we're gonna say that, I feel like we should put I feel like we need to take into consideration the recency bias that's going on here. It says that the data is pulled between January 1st and June 30th, 2026. So there you go. The data was pulled very, very recent as well. So, it's kind of very sure. Isn't it? First up, we've got players from Asia and Oceania, or however, Oceania, I forget. They'll be paving the way for what you will notice is a pattern with a few of our categories. What you will notice is different will be the ghoul coming in for top pick of killer, with Fangman holding a very long and strong victory over most picked survivor. Their Shanes have also gone the heaviest escape word. But again, it's like recency bias as hell, because it's like, yeah, of course they. After they just came out. It's like, give us some time and that number's gonna be in the toilet like everyone else, Always was. So next we have Latin America. This will be interesting. Their most picked survivor perk is, interestingly enough, Deja Vu. I don't fully know how to feel about that. Not that it's a bad perk. It's not. It's great. I forget I've used it before. I like it. I'm just surprised is all. But yeah, I mean the survivor perks, I guess, are like killer perks, are a little different than survivors. Like I feel like killer perks, people like to utilize certain ones because they're sort of meta or whatever. And while we do that to an extent with survivor, also it's like to some extent you have to like build around a perk and stuff, and it's like, well, what if you don't have the other pieces to that puzzle, right? To that build, that could maybe make that a little tricky. The most picked killer perk is also Scourge Check Paid Residents, which doesn't fully surprise me. I know that perk was like better at one point in time, and then I believe they did like, I think change like tune it down or something at one point, or I'm misremembering, which is possible because I'm kind of an idiot when it comes to certain things, but it's cool. Most picked killer is the Huntress. See, that kind of makes a little bit more sense to me than the Ghoul. Even with the recency sort of bias that Ghoul has, because Huntress is like a fan favorite. I've noticed that, this game kind of went from Trapper being seen as its main character to, while Trapper is still there, they've kind of embraced some of the other killers as well as Stasis. And I believe Huntress has kind of appeared to me as one of those killers that they sort of started using to be like another face of the company, or not the company, but like of the game, which I think is cool. it's cool to see Huntress get some love lately because she's really not that bad of a character or anything. Uh, Killer was the highest kill rate, is also the slasher at 71.2%, so a little bit higher, quite a bit higher actually than the other region. Again, though, it's like that's very heavily recency biased because he just released, but it is also Jason, so like I kind of get it too in that sense because Jason Voorhees is like one of the most um, requested is the most requested character in the game for like a decade now. So to have him in the game is crazy. Their most picked survivors, Meg Thomas. That's another one that I see a lot. I like Meg though. You know what I mean? Like Meg has some great outfits, just like Fang. But she's a little bit different about it. You know, they give her different stuff. Obviously, they're all supposed to be different, but like they let her rock kind of a different vibe, and I like it. I really like Meg a lot as a survivor. Survivor with the highest escape rate in week was at 41.2%. Interestingly enough, that's lower than the Asia and Oceania ring. Theirs is at 54.5. Latin America is of course 41.2%. But does that surprise me? No. Again, recency bias. I feel like heavily is part of that because I'm sure a lot of people are playing. Not a lot of people, but like because he's new, I'm sure a decent amount of people are playing him because he's new. And thus, anytime they are getting to escape, right, they're adding to that total. So because there's so many of them playing and whatnot, because so many people are trying out Shane and whatnot, I kind of wonder how much that is like raising the escape percentage for them. But I don't know. Except we've got Latin America who leaned ever slightly more towards Deja Vu than Windows of Opportunity. So I guess it sounds like they were very close then. That's kind of interesting though. Their go-to gals were the Huntress and Meg, proving that sometimes you really can't beat the classics. I mean, yeah, they're both great. They also boast the most lethal slasher. That's pretty cool. So that way, to have the stats for Europe, I'm very intrigued by I'm very excited for this because Europe is definitely different, you know. Like Asia and Oceania and Latin America, there's I guess different vibes there to an extent, not that either is bad, but they're just a little different. But like Europe is definitely one that I'm intrigued by, so I'm very curious to see what theirs are. So their most picked survivor pick is Ones of Opportunity yet again. This is the second country or region now, not country, region. I'm dumb. It's a little late when I'm doing this video, so that's probably not helping. That has Ones of Opportunity as their most picked survivor pick. That's interesting. I'm really surprised to see Latin America was Deja Vu, but it sounds like it was barely over Windows of Opportunity. So I'm not entirely sure why Windows of Opportunity is so enticing. I mean, I get that like lets you see like windows and certain other like windows and whatnot, so I get it, but I don't know. I need to look at that perk again, I guess, because I don't really fully remember what it does. I guess I need to look at that. Most peculiar perk is yet again Scourge Check Pain Resonance. I feel like that's not. I feel like they're all gonna probably have that at this rate, but maybe not. Not that Pain Res is a bad perk, of course. It was better at one point, but they like nerfed it or something at one point, so it's kind of interesting. Their most peculiar is the Mastermind. I remember when he released and I hated playing against him. Well, it was also salty at that time for some other reasons. They just very drastically changed the game from like what I was used to, and it just completely killed a lot of my fun because I wasn't like at that time when he released, I wasn't surviving much, like escaping much as Survivor, you know. I just did how they changed things. And then he came out and he was an absolute menace, so it like made that rougher, you know. But it's good to see him. I've always liked the Mastermind Upper. I'm not good at all as the character, but I like him. I think he's a cool character, so I'm glad he's here. Kill's the highest kill rate is once again the Slasher at 70%. So not bad either, you know. Again, a lot of recency bias there. I'm sure a lot of people are playing him. So that kind of makes sense. But yeah, that's kind of cool. Their most picked survivor, interestingly enough, is Sable Ward. I like Sable. I haven't fully kind of formulated my opinion, I feel like, on how much I like her. You know. But I like her, and it's cool to see her. Of course, we have Survivor was the highest escape rate is once again Shane Wigwas at 44.6%. Again, I just personally feel like there's a lot of recency bias going on with Shane. I just feel like given enough time, he won't be as high, you know. For to fall under our gaze is Europe, who brings us back to the once more opportunity trend. Our European players show a preference for the mastermind when it comes to killing and lean towards the iconic Sable for surviving. I don't know if I would say she's all that iconic. I mean, I guess in lore she is to an extent, but at the same time it's like, I don't know, trying to say that I don't know. It makes sense, but she's also just so new. You know, she's only been in the game for a couple of years. It's really crazy to think how much of an impact Sable has left already. Now we'll get to see the players test for North America, which is which is where my neck of the woods is. So I'm curious. So our most picked survivor perk is yet again Weather's Opportunity. I apparently am missing something on that perk. I've been sleeping on it or something because I don't really remember it very well. So I'll have to look at that some way. Most picked killer perk is Scourge Pain Residence yet again. The most picked killer though is the animatronic. That makes a lot of sense, honestly. I don't really know how, say, Canada or Mexico, which would be included in this region, would feel about FNAF. Also that, you know, those are just different areas. So I'm kind of curious, but like, with America being so very different in certain like places where you go, and not only that, but also having, I think, but like FNAF was huge over here, so I'm very happy that he's our most picked. That he's the region's most picked character is the FNAF one because of not only how big that like was over here, but also just how much I love those games and grew up with them and whatnot. The killer's the highest kill rate. Who would have fought the Slasher yet again at 67.7%? Not bad, not bad. Most picked survivors yet again Sable, just like our European friends. That's kind of cool. Us in Europe can having some things in common here. That's kind of cool. Survivor was the highest escape rate is once again Shane Wakewas at 43.1%. Again, not a lot of recency bias, but cool to see them, nonetheless. And last but definitely not least, we've got North America, who have spent way more than 5 nights playing the animatronic. They also share a love for Sable with their friends across the ocean. Apparently we do. Which we think is just beautiful. It is cool. You know, I mean, I feel like to some extent, we like to think of Europe, right, as being sort of smug a little bit to an extent. I mean, Canada definitely is kind of seen that way to an extent. Although I personally don't view Canada or Europe that way, but I know some people do, and whatnot. But it's really cool to see that, like, when it comes to this game at least, that there's some things in common there, you know, it's cool. We want to emphasize that these sets only take into account the first 2 weeks of the slasher being available. Okay, that makes sense. The players were still figuring out counterplay and the first 5 days of Shane being available, which is why they appear consistently throughout this post. We'll continue to monitor the kill rate of the slasher as time goes on. We hope you found these sets interesting, and we look forward to seeing you again for our next round. Till next time, we'll do it, team. Kind of excited for the next round, honestly. It's really cool to see these, so yeah, I'm excited. So, final thoughts, I guess. I don't really know what to say. I'm very surprised that Latin America narrowly had a higher used perk than what everybody else had. It sounds like they always have the same exact one as the mastermind. So that's pretty cool. Pain Resonance kind of surprised me. I know it's a good perk, but again, I don't really remember specifics of that perk, right? Like just off the top of my head and stuff. So that's a little less surprising to me, but definitely a perk I need to kind of look into more. It was cool to see all the varied most picked killers. You know, like Asia and Europe, or Asia and Oceania had the Ghoul. North America, of course, having the animatronic, which again makes me happy. Europe had, interestingly enough, Mastermind. That's kind of interesting to me to think about. Not that they're wrong, of course, just kind of interesting to think about. And then Latin America had Huntress, which I think is very cool that Latin America have a classic. You know, they have a classic character as theirs, which is kind of nice. You know, I kind of wish there were more classic characters on here. You know, and of course, most pick Survivor. Europe and America both, Europe and North America both shared Sable, which is really cool. Asia and Oceania, of course, had Fake Babe, which is another solid choice. Latin America was Meg, and I've always liked Meg, so it's great to see that she made it somewhere on this, you know. Of course, Slasher was the highest kill rate for everybody. Makes sense, considering, you know, he was only in the game for 2 weeks when these stats came out. Same with Shane being the survivor. That makes sense because he's just been in the game, you know. Apparently Shane was just away in the game for like 5 days, something like I said. So that was great to think about. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the video, ring the bell, do all the algorithm guards, helps out a lot. It means a lot to us. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye. Boo.